Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. The Literary Star Hall in the Sky Martial Court. After 2 days of meditating on the heavenly writing, Zhou had fully replenished his extraordinary power. Following that, he decided it was best to cultivate. Now that his cultivation base had reached this stage, he could not always rely on buying an avatar. He opened the system interface and took a look at the Myriad Supreme. However, when he checked the price, he only saw a row of question marks. He had already obtained the Thousand Realms Whirling, but he still could not see the price of the Myriad Supreme? Was there such a huge gap between the two? Pavilion Master. Meng Changdong called out anxiously as he hurriedly walked into the hall, holding a piece of cloth that held a formation and few talismans. What's the matter? Zhou asked. Something has happened to Mr. Seventh, Meng Changdong replied as he unfolded the cloth and lit the talismans up. Soon after, a projection appeared in the air. Zhou saw Wuya in the sky shuttle. It seemed like they were still in the fog. Wuya kneeled as he said, "I've made a big mistake. Master, please punish me severely." Zhou frowned. "Speak first." Mingxirin interjected at this moment, "Master, let me tell you what happened." Following that, Mingxirin recounted everything that happened to his master. When Mingxirin spoke about a Black Lotus expert and the Thousand Realms Whirling avatar, Zhou said with a frown on his face, "Luli." Upon hearing Zhou's words, the people in the sky shuttle looked at each other in confusion. The name of the Black Lotus expert is Luli? Zhou nodded and said, "I met him once. Based on your description, he should be Luli. I didn't expect him to really go to the Endless Ocean." Mingxirin scratched his head and asked, why did he go to the Endless Ocean to kill the sea beasts? If it were not for the commotion he caused, attracting all the sea beasts, 8th junior brother wouldn't have gotten into trouble. Zhou did not reply to Mingxirin immediately. Instead, he closed his eyes and chanted inwardly, "For all beings in the universe, their lives, deaths, kindness, evil, merits, and sins, could be clearly seen." Zhou's eyes glowed with a blue light before he saw the Endless Ocean. Dang Kong was carrying 2 people, flying in an unknown direction. Compared to when he was at the 100 Tribulation Insight stage, the consumption speed of the extraordinary power when using the heavenly writing power seemed to have slowed down. Regardless, it still consumed a lot of extraordinary power. In just a few breaths, Zhou had already depleted 1/3 of his extraordinary power. He stopped the power and opened his eyes before he looked at the projection in the air and said, he should be fine for now. Mingxirin sighed inwardly. As expected, his master had said these empty words to comfort everyone. At this moment, Wuya suddenly smacked his leg as he exclaimed in anger, clearly annoyed at himself, "I should have left a mark on everyone." Marks were a method of tracking. They were very shallow and easy to remove, so it was easy to overlook them. It was much better to use them as means to track or communicate with one's acquaintances. Even a wise man will make mistakes. "You've tried your best, so there's no need to blame yourself," Zhou said. Although his master did not blame him, Wuya still felt uncomfortable. This was the Endless Ocean, not any other place. The slightest mistake could lead to a fatal outcome. At this moment, Mingxirin asked in confusion, "Master, what about Luli?" Wuya interjected, "I think he mentioned something about the Great Void." Zhou was intrigued. This meant the Black Lotus domain knew about the Great Void and the Great Void Seed. If the Great Void Seed was a treasure, it would surely attract people's attention. However, Luli would rather sacrifice himself than watch the Great Void Sea fall into the Endless Ocean? After a moment, Zhou said solemnly, "You must keep this a secret." Understood. You've already traveled more than half of the journey here. At your current speed, you'll arrive in the Red Lotus domain in 5 days. At that time, I'll send someone to pick you up, Zhou said. Everyone bowed. Zhou waved his hand and said, "As for old 8th, he should be safe with Dang Kang." Wuya said, "Indeed. Dang Kang is extraordinary. When it arrived at the Evil Sky Pavilion, it breached the barrier without any difficulty. I ordered 8th junior brother to tame it at that time. I didn't expect it in the end, it's all thanks to Dang Kong. Lu Zhou raised his voice slightly as he said in an even tone, that's a matter of course. How can my mount be ordinary? Si Wuya and Mingxirin stared at their master with their mouths agape. Duanmu Shang, Jiang Aijian, and the 4 elders were similarly shocked. Jiang Aijian, who regained his senses first, said, no wonder Dang Kong looks so pleasing to the eyes. As it turns out, it's Senior Ji's mount. Jiang Aijian. Lu Zhou shifted his eyes to Jiang Aijian. You're calling me? Jiang Aijian pointed at himself. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said in a flat tone, among everyone in the sky shuttle, you're the only one who's still neatly dressed and looks rather good. You sure know how to enjoy yourself. Jiang Aijian hastily waved his hands and said, no, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. My cultivation base is too low, so I'm not much of a help. Isn't it normal to protect the weak? As though he did not hear Jiang Aijian's words, Lu Zhou asked, do you know the difference between you and my disciples? There are too many differences. They simply beat me in every aspect. I admit defeat, Jiang Aijian said with a mischievous smile on his face. Lu Zhou shook his head and said, when you need to retreat, you should retreat. When you need to advance, you should advance. Duanmu Shang is brave, Si Wuya is smart, Mingxirin knows when to advance and when to retreat, Zhu Honggong steps up when the occasion calls for it. The 4 elders are wise and know how to support them and when to restrain them. However, you're sneaky and crafty. Before Jiang Aijian could respond, Lu Zhou continued to say, don't be so quick to admit to your mistakes just yet. I'm only telling you this because I value your ability. If it were someone else, they wouldn't be qualified to speak to me. That's all I have to say. You can mull over this on your own. Jiang Aijian was stunned. When he regained his senses, his face flushed red. Lu Zhou looked at his disciples and said, we'll stop here for now. Focus on maneuvering the sky shuttle and your surroundings. Yes, master. Lu Zhou waved his hand, and the projection disappeared. In the sky shuttle. Jiang Aijian felt ashamed of himself. He wanted to bow to everyone, but the members of the evil sky pavilion moved to the front of the deck as though they did not see him. In the end, he only silently bowed at them. Pan Litian must have seen Jiang Aijian even though at this moment, he was looking up ahead. He said, young man, you have to learn how to see the bigger picture. Sometimes being too smart can be considered as stupid as well. I'm enlightened. 5 days later. A flying chariot flew out from the Literary Star Palace in the Sky Martial Court. It flew in the direction of the endless ocean to receive the members of the evil sky pavilion. Meanwhile, Lu Zhou sat cross-legged in his room. He stroked his beard as he fell deep into thoughts. 3 days ago, he had used the heavenly writing power to locate Zhu Honggong. Zhu Honggong was still flying above the endless ocean. Without any reference, it was difficult to pinpoint his 8th disciple's location. Lu Zhou closed his eyes. Let's see it again. He recited the mantra inwardly. Soon enough, his eyes glowed with a blue light. Once again, he saw Zhu Honggong. This time, he noticed Dang Kang's speed was much slower. Lu Li, who was seated on Dang Kang's back, seemed to be in a comatose state. Meanwhile, Zhu Honggong was flying using his energy. Lu Zhou stopped using the power. A frown could be seen on his face when he opened his eyes. He still could not determine Zhu Honggong's exact location. He muttered to himself, even Lu Li, who has activated 5 birth charts and formed the Thousand Realms whirling avatar, is grievously injured. Based on Lu Li's cultivation base and strength, Lu Zhou tried to estimate the strength of the sea beast they encountered. From what he saw with his heavenly writing power and Mingxi description, he was certain it would not be a problem for someone who had a 5 birth chart Thousand Realms whirling avatar to escape even if it was difficult to defeat the sea beast. The question was, why was Lu Li so determined to complete this mission to the extent that he was willing to disregard his life? What secret was hidden in this mission? Lu Zhou did not dwell on these questions for long. He would figure it out in the future. It was more important for him to pay special attention to Zhu Honggong over the next few days. Zhu Honggong was his disciple, after all. He did not wish to see any harm come to him. After Lu Zhou organized his thoughts, he closed his eyes. He activated the purple glazed ceramic before he began to meditate on the heavenly writing again. Before he fell into his meditative state, he thought to himself that he must find more fire spirit stones. The purple glazed ceramic was unique and truly suited for cultivating. He had to upgrade it. The endless ocean. After braving through lightning and thunder, the sky shuttle flew peacefully over the sea for 3 days. At this moment, the morning sun that had just risen shone on the members of the evil sky pavilion. Mingxirin stretched his limbs before he said with a sigh, "I'm really not used to 8th junior brother's absence." "I hope he's fine," Wuya murmured as he looked ahead. Soon enough, a thin line appeared in the distance. "We're here." Everyone rose to their feet and rushed to the side of the deck. Their mood improved as they looked at the coastline that gradually grew bigger and bigger. They had finally arrived. "Hey, make sure we are going in the right direction," Mingxirin suddenly said at this moment. "If we go to the wrong place, we'll be in big trouble." Everyone turned to look at Mingxirin. The joke was not funny at all. In fact, it was rather terrifying. Only Mingxirin remained unaffected. He pointed at the coastline and said, "It can't be wrong." Before we departed, I confirmed the location with Guardian Meng. Moreover, he left a communication formation that will guide us in the right direction. Fortunately, we didn't listen to the Black Lotus expert's suggestion. Otherwise, we'd be in big trouble, Mingxirin said. That senior's suggestion isn't necessarily bad. It's just his suggestion leads to uncertainties, Wuya replied. Mingxirin glanced at Wuya and curiously asked, "Since there's a Black Lotus cultivator, where's the Black Lotus domain?" Wuya remained silent as he looked at the coastline that was getting clearer and clearer. No one knew what he was thinking. Actually, an ignorant person can live a happy life. There's no need to worry about this and that. The more you know, the more you'll worry. In hindsight, my worries in the past are really nothing, Mingxirin said. Duanmu Sheng carried the Overlord spear as he stood next to Mingxirin and said, "4th junior brother, although your cultivation base is higher than mine, your courage is slightly lacking. Who cares if it's a black lotus or a white lotus? Just stab it with your spear." 3rd senior brother is right. Mingxirin smiled and did not refute Duanmu Sheng's words. He thought to himself, "This is what I have to do as Master's most trusted disciple." Finally, the sky shuttle was approaching the shore. Looking at the calm sea, one could not help but feel at ease. Meanwhile, Wuya was transfixed with the scenery in front of him. At this moment, a figure flew up from below. Buzz. At the same time, the sound of the resonance of energy rang in the air. The figure hovered in the center of a 200-foot red lotus avatar as the avatar shot out toward the sky shuttle, causing the waves to surge with its energy. 10 leaves? How can we be so unlucky? Mingxirin lamented. He was not afraid of 9-leaf cultivators, but how was he supposed to fight a 10-leaf cultivator? Don't panic. Increase the altitude of the sky shuttle, Wuya ordered. The advantages and disadvantages between the sky shuttle and an ordinary flying chariot were revealed at this moment. One of the requirements for a sky shuttle was its ability to reach a high altitude since it was used to cross the endless ocean. The high altitude could eliminate danger brought by the sea beasts, after all. After experiencing a life or death situation, everyone remained relatively calm when dealing with a 10-leaf expert. The sky shuttle creaked as it rose into the sky. At this moment, the 10-leaf expert unleashed a grand technique. A red conical appeared above the avatar's head and shot up toward the sky. "This fellow isn't simple," Mingxirin said. "Prepare for battle." At this moment, the 10-leaf avatar was just 30 meters away from the sky shuttle when it suddenly came to a stop in the air. Then, the avatar disappeared before a clear voice rang in the air. "Nia Qingyun is here to receive the comrades from the evil sky pavilion." The sky shuttle came to a stop. Si Wuya walked up to the helm and looked down. At this moment, he vaguely remembered some information when he communicated with Meng Changdong. He's an ally. You really frightened me. Ming Shirin patted his chest. Jiang Aijian exclaimed in shock, a 10-leaf expert is just an errand boy? Pan Litian chuckled before he said, that's because our pavilion master is too strong. Look at him carefully, see how respectful he is? Remember to maintain the dignity and pride of the evil sky pavilion. You have a point. The sky shuttle descended until they drew level with Nie Qingyun. At this moment, Nie Qingyun saw 4 elders with heavy auras. Then, his eyes shifted to the few young men with rather strong auras. He thought to himself that the members of the evil sky pavilion were, indeed, extraordinary. Si Wuya was the first to speak. Sect Master Nie. Nie Qingyun was slightly taken aback. He asked, you recognize me? Si Wuya smiled. He did not directly reply to Nie Qingyun's question. Instead, he said, you're the sect master of the 12 sects of Cloud Mountain, a 10-leaf expert. How can I not recognize you? To Si Wuya, knowing oneself and one's enemy was the basics. Nie Qingyun said, somewhat embarrassed, you're exaggerating. All of you must be exhausted after such a long journey. Please come with me to the flying chariot. I'll man the helm. There's no need for that, Si Wuya shook his head and said, we'll travel in the sky shuttle. Nie Qingyun said, that's right. The sky shuttle is precious and swift. How can we abandon it? I'll tell my men to return, and I'll return here to lead the way. Nie Qingyun descended for a moment before he flew into the sky shuttle. He was slightly cautious as he walked toward the helm. Ming Shirin yawned and said, then, I'll have to trouble you. I'll rest for a while. The 4 elders left after a flurry of quick greetings. Si Wuya cupped his fists together and said, thank you. One after another, everyone went to rest or sleep. At this moment. Woof. Woof. Cheong-chi lifted its head and barked perfunctorily twice before it lay down and fell asleep like a dead dog. While Nie Qingyun manned the helm, he turned back to take a few looks. All of a sudden, he could not help wonder if these people were truly the talented members of the evil Sky Pavilion. Sky Marshal Court on Sky Marshal Mountain. It was almost evening at this moment. Li Yunzheng, disciples from Cloud Mountain and the Thousand Willow Monastery, and several elders from the Sky Marshal Academy were waiting silently. On the other hand, Xikong Beichen, Zhenghai, and the others waited in the Literary Star Hall. When the Sky Shuttle finally arrived outside of Sky Marshal Mountain, someone cried out, they're here. Qiu He, the Sky Marshal Court elder, quickly said, prepare to welcome them. Everyone raised their heads and watched as the Sky Shuttle slowly descended. Then, they said and bowed in unison, greetings, gentlemen and elders. At this moment, Nie Qingyun jumped down from the Sky Shuttle and said, everyone, we've arrived at the Sky Marshal Court. When the members of the evil Sky Pavilion saw the rows of people greeting them in the center of the Sky Marshal Court, they could not help the pride that rose in their hearts. They straightened their backs as they alighted the Sky Shuttle. At the same time the 4 elders alighted from the Sky Shuttle, Meng Changdong stepped forward and said to Li Yunzheng, these 4 elders are the elders of the evil Sky Pavilion. Bang! Duanmu Sheng leaped down from the Sky Shuttle and stabbed the Overlord's spear into the ground. Then, he bowed slightly to the crowd. Meng Changdong continued with the introductions. This is the Evil Sky Pavilion's 3rd disciple, this is Mr. Fourth, the Evil Sky Pavilion's 4th disciple. Don't underestimate the wild beast next to him. It's a terrifying high-level fierce beast. Li Yunzheng nodded. His words were filled with praise as he said, I recognize this beast. It's called Cheong-Chi. It's a fierce beast with extremely high combat strength. When it matures, it'd be like a tiger with wings. It can soar in the sky and conquer the lands. The crowd nodded and looked at Cheong-Chi in awe. These words were really pleasing to the ears. At this moment, Ming Shirin was like a peacock strutting around with its tails wide open. He turned around and called out, Doggy, come here. Woof. 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 Silly dog. Hurry up. Ming Shirin glared at Qiongqi. Qiongqi leaped out of the sky shuttle and completed an elegant move that involved flailing paws before it fell to the ground with a loud plop. Then, it cried out pitifully. Everyone was speechless. Ming Shirin coughed, acting as though he did not see what had just happened. Then, with an expression that said he was not familiar with Qiongqi, he turned around and walked away. Upon seeing Ming Shirin walking away, Qiongqi, who was afraid of strangers, hurriedly got up and chased after Ming Shirin. Meng Changdong glossed over the matter and continued his introductions. This is Mr. Seventh of the Evil Sky Pavilion. See Wuya, who was dressed in a scholarly robe, walked out at this moment. Everyone's eyes lit up immediately. Li Yunzheng pushed the crowd aside and hurried to move in front of Si Wuya. Then, he bowed and said, "This student pays respect to teacher." Unlike the forces in the cultivation world, Li Yunzheng used the words student and teacher when referring to himself and addressing Si Wuya. It was as though he was already prepared to start asking for advice on how to rule the country.